out and working with professional, busy women, dealing with all of the things as well as families. And I met Mary Lee back in 2019. But I had heard of her much sooner than that. She had actually trained some of my friends and colleagues. So I had a good friend that I was doing some work with who had actually gone to school at Bastyr University, and Mary Lee was teaching there at that time when she became a hypnotherapist. And so I'd heard of Mary Lee and her textbooks and her classes. And so when I decided to start Psyched Up Success, which was something where I took my coaching life and my hypnotherapy skills and put them together to go into private practice and really work with those busy professional women as whole people. And I was seeing a lot of blocks, a lot of subconscious barriers and things that were coming up for people over and over again. And I really wanted to help them in a deeper way. And I wanted to work virtually. I sought Mary Lee out and I found out that she was starting to teach both in person and online at that time. And it was just such perfect timing. I reached out, and ever since, I have been a student of hers. I have been really diving deeper into the work that she does, because I was trained in hypnotherapy back when I was in grad school for clinical psychology. So I was very clinically trained. And what I learned in Mary Lee's classes was so much deeper than that. It was really treating people who as whole people. So, we're looking at their mind, their body, and their spirit, and how we're intricately connected. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite things, which is regressive techniques, and how we can help people find those root causes from the past in hypnotherapy, and how any kind of coach or healer can benefit from learning these skills. So Mary Lee, thank you so much for being here with me today and offering to talk to my audience about exactly what it is that you do in your trainings, because I've experienced it. I've had the pleasure, and I'm so grateful to have been able to be in your presence and learn from you for all of these years now. But I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell them about you and all of your experience. And then we'll just have a conversation about these techniques that you're teaching in your upcoming courses.
Okay, well, thank you, first of all, for having me, inviting me here. And it's a pleasure to be here and in front of this audience. Like you said, I'm an instructor of hypnotherapy and past life regression. And I also teach some soulful shamanic style techniques as well. And I'm an author of 6 books. My latest one is Mastering Hypnotherapy, and it's an incredibly full book. It has all these different techniques and it's transformational strategies for healers and coaches. And then my previous book was Exploring Past Lives. I'm backward in the films.
And it's actually coming out where we can read it. Yes, you're doing great.
I'm going the wrong way. But anyway, so I am very well known for my work in past life regression. I've been a certified instructor of hypnotherapy since 1999. And like Jody said, I've taught at Bastyr University. I also taught over almost 2 decades at Bellevue College. Between those 2 universities, two colleges. And I have a private practice here in the Northwest. But starting with COVID, everything went online. And it's been beautiful because I have students that have graduated through my online course from all over the world: South Africa, Germany, Belgium, the UK, Canada, Bahamas, Puerto Rico, all over the place. And so it's wonderful to be able to share all this knowledge with this audience. So beyond the books, I have a PH.D. in psychology and have been a board member of the Washington Hypnotherapy Association and another Hypnotherapy Association. So anyway, I've been around for a while, and it's so fun to be here with you, Jody.
Thank you. Yeah, you have such a depth of knowledge. I know even before hypnotherapy, there's so many of these pieces that you bring in to your courses, like you said, the shamanic journeys and all of these different uh, you know, wealth of knowledge, honestly, that again, that's not a lot of what I learned in school. And one of the things that I love is that you don't teach scripts. And so we can definitely talk a little bit about that, because often, when we get trained, and like I said, I had wonderful training. I was trained by the Oregon Society of Clinical Hypnosis, which is amazing and wonderful. And I do a lot of medical work still, especially around pregnancy and postpartum and different chronic health conditions, and all of that knowledge was so valuable. But then being able to go off script, right? Learning from you some of these deeper techniques. And again, working with people as whole people, not just looking at this one piece of who they are, was really important, because most of the people that I work with, the root causes of the challenges that they're dealing with, no matter what it is, if we're talking about a habit, or an addiction, or we're talking about a chronic health condition, or they're dealing with different anxieties or fears, a lot of that is going way, way, way back. And so it's important to go with what is happening with the client, to be really client centered, which is what you teach, because there's so much different training out there. And like I said, I had a really great in-depth training a very long time ago. And things change, things evolve. There's techniques that you've created that are going to be unique to your training. But I see so many people now that we have the online space, because of course I was trained in person because we didn't have this back then. And I was in your last class that was in person and virtual. So that was, right before everything shifted to very much being online. But I feel like there's so much training available now that is just scratching the surface, or it is very scripted. When I go into a session, I might have a plan of, okay, I think this is what I'm working on with this client, but often it takes a turn. The subconscious is going to come up with whatever is actually going on. And what we think is happening on the surface isn't always the direction we end up going, because the client's subconscious will take us a totally different direction. And I feel like there's a lot of trainings that don't equip people for that. They don't know what to do when that happens, because they know how to maybe create suggestions that are positive, or they know how to follow a script. But when things take a different turn and the client really needs you to go a different direction, they might be lost. And so I would love for you to speak to that, about that client-centered approach that you teach, and really, what the difference is from, a lot of trainings that people might have just taken online that are really quick, or even, for me, somebody who's coming from a clinical or a different kind of background, like what sets your trainings apart? Because I know, but I would love for you to share with everybody that's watching that maybe has a little training, maybe they've dabbled a little bit, but they don't feel confident yet, or they don't really know what to do when unexpected things happen.
Right. Well, I was also trained by using scripts. And by that, what we talk about is, oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
When we talk about using scripts, what'll happen is the client will call and they'll say, well, I want to work on my relationship, or my block with money, or my addiction, my habit, whatever that is. And then you'll get a lot of information from that client. And then you'll go, the hypnotherapist would go to a tome of books, or maybe a stack of books, and look for scripts that would be the perfect match in your imagination. It would be the perfect match for the issue that this client wants to resolve. Well, this could take an hour or two, or you have to write a brand new metaphorical story with suggestions and everything so that you can read it to that client. And so then you would put a client into trance, read the script, and bring them out. Well, I was trained that way as well, although I also had a lot of NLP and some other techniques thrown in there in my training. But when I hit the streets and I opened up my business, it was so nerve-wracking because, first of all, you're spending an hour or two before you even see the client, and you're charging them for 1 hour. So now you're up to 2-3 hours of work. And then you don't even know. So you'd have to test for depth. How deep is the client? How prepared, how open they are to this suggestion. And then you read them the story, and then you bring them out and send them on their way. And you just hope, you just cross your fingers and think, I hope I made a difference. I hope this is going to work. I hope my metaphor that I chose for them is the perfect one. To me, it was like throwing spaghetti at the wall. And so very quickly, I started figuring out a different way to come at this. And I realized that when I was talking with my clients, they were giving me so much information from their own either conscious or their subconscious mind, but they had so many ideas and somewhere in their language it was being indicated what it is they needed. And so I started, first of all, like you said, I created a couple of techniques like the reverse metaphor, the empowerment symbol, a lot of things that I created that I'm now teaching. But learning to do the client-centered way, putting them into trance, getting them in a dialogue, and having them do the exploration, have them figure out what is the root cause, where do we need to go to fix this, and then I would have tools, the different techniques, NLP techniques, techniques that I made up that would help them in that moment, right? And so now I put the whole package together. So this is 25, almost 30 years of practice and use and developing all these different techniques that allow us to stay client-centered and then also be able to address any issue that a client brings. It doesn't matter if I haven't even talked to them. I mean, I always do talk to them before the session, but maybe on the second or third session, we haven't really talked about what we're going to work on. They just come in and they go, oh, this week this happened and I want to work on it. I don't care because I don't have to do all that preparation. I'm going to put the client into trance, and the same techniques are going to go in. We're going to explore, how did this begin? What is the root of this? What is needed? How does it need to be changed? What is going to resolve this? And then how do we put the client on a new trajectory where they have the resources they need and they're no longer bothered by this, whatever this issue is, right? And so now it can all be very spontaneous. So there's the difference. And a lot of people who are trained in the classical script-based hypnotherapy really are insecure. And I understand that because that's how I felt when I first started out. And so they come, even though they've been trained, they come into my classes because you're going to learn confidence. You're going to be prepared for anything that the client is bringing up to you, even in the last minute, or even like Jody said, sometimes the session goes in a totally different direction once you get started. For instance, I had a client, we were going to work on, I think it was weight loss. And so we were focused on weight loss. But in the very beginning, the subconscious mind indicated to us that before we could ever go to weight loss, we had to deal with her self-love. That what we needed to do was solidify her self-esteem, her self-love, her self-care, and then address the weight loss issue. And so this is the sort of thing that is the value of getting that feedback from their subconscious mind, so we know what the real issue is. Because if she had self-love, she's going to start making different food choices and lifestyle differences, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of times people will come to us and they'll be focused on the effect versus the cause. So they're focused on the behavior, they're focused on the outward thing that they want to change, when really, like you said, it's more like self worth or self, something going on underneath the surface that's deeper. Our conscious awareness is only 5 to 10%. Everything else, that 90% plus, is happening in the subconscious. And so you don't always know what's going to come up when you start these sessions. And so, such a benefit. Like I said, I knew that you were working virtually. I wanted to do that. I was transitioning because I was getting away from my own burnout that I had been dealing with. And I really wanted to work with the people who I wanted to work with and I loved working with. And I knew how important it was. That's why I was drawn to hypnotherapy in the first place, is finding that root cause and not just talking in circles around the same thing for years on end, unable to figure out what was really going on. But I got so much more than that, obviously, in that training. I truly believe in continuing education and always learning. And it was really important to me to, dive a little deeper into all these different aspects. And one of the big things that we have been talking about recently, you and I, is regression in all of its forms. There's a lot of different forms of regression, and one of those things that prompted that conversation recently between us was my trip to Germany to study prenatal bonding,
Right.
BA, because we actually. I asked you, and you graciously accepted to do a regression session for me. So, back to preconception and womb and birth and early childhood, because it's important in that type of a program to do our own work so that we're aware of our own journey, so that we can, heal and not pass our stressors or traumas or experiences onto other people. And it was really interesting because when I was there studying, everyone in my cohort was talking about our personal regressive experiences. And we were talking about the things that came up for us. And often that happens. We will work with clients and they, it's important therapeutically to go back and look at that early childhood. We do have memories before we're 3 years old. I know, that's kind of an old school way of thinking, that we don't have those memories. We just didn't have language yet. So we do store those things in our subconscious and in our bodies, and we still have those experiences, when we have, this lifetime, but we have past experiences that are still potentially influencing us. And so it was really fascinating and interesting to see just how much, through pre and perinatal psychology and everything I've been diving into, just how much all of that really truly does still affect us as adults that we don't even
Right.
realize. And so there's so many different types of regression. It can be, regression back to a cause of something that's happening. It could be that inner child work and that inner child regression. I mean, we can go, really far back to see what was happening generationally, what was happening in, our current life and past and between, and, all of these areas. And it's a big, and I feel like that's one of the things that you teach very thoroughly, because that's a big part of the work that you do. And I love that I saw that you're always making adjustments. You're always adding new techniques every time you have a new class. I love sitting in as alumni, and the fact that you offer for us to be able to do that is fantastic, because I always learn something new. And I know, we did that regression session for me recently, and then I saw that you're adding some of that in to this class. And so I'd love for you to talk about all things regression and how sometimes people spontaneously regress, And it's
Right.
important to know what to do with that, but then also to be able to intentionally help people with that too. Once you figure out what that cause is, and you start going back in time to, the past programming or the past experiences, y- knowing what to do is so key, because if you're on a script, that's not happening.
No, no, it's going to be impossible to help them, and stay bound to that script or feel unprepared to try to pivot away from that script. So I do include scripts in my training, but they're only to teach the structure of the techniques. And there's over a dozen techniques that you learn, far more than a dozen techniques that you learn in the training. And so in the very beginning, you might be referencing the notes about that, the structure, so that you can remember. But once you have practiced it and learned it, then it just becomes automatic. And in a given session, I might go between 8 or 12 or 20 different techniques, because you're moving very organically, following this subconscious mind. Where do they want me to go? And then creating this environment, this envelope for the people to then work through whatever that is. And then we're guided to something else, and then there's a technique for that. So um, with the regression, like you say, there's a lot of faces to regression. Uh, One of them is just going back to the initial sensitizing event, is what we call that. So if you have a habit, or maybe an emotion, something like that, or a pain even, um, you'll go back in time from the present, regressing back to that original trigger that happened. So maybe something happened in childhood, and now, every so often that's getting triggered. And then you have these um, unconscious responses to them. Uh, and then you can also intentionally go back even further and go into the womb and into the birth, the moment of birth, that whole experience. The way that I like to do it, I find that if we're traveling backwards like that, um, oftentimes we're hitting on events and experiences that perhaps are already consciously known to the client, which is fine. Usually they'll pick something that is related. But once we get into the area of the birth and the womb, I like to make sure that the client is really not speculating, that they're really engaged in that. So my own personal way of doing that, and you've been trained in this period, this time period, so maybe your technique is different. But what I do for clients is we go into a past life first. So when we're in a past life, when we are remembering those events, we have to be in that right brain, creative, imaginative place, because consciously and logically we don't have those memories. So by going into the past life, I know that the client is really strongly connected to that, to that creative part that is remembering deeper subconscious information. Then we go into the time, preferably, my goal, it depends on what the client is able to remember, but we go to the pre-attachment moment, where we're looking at, where does that client want to be born, right? Like, do they even, I mean, we know that they have a choice, but not everybody takes the choice. Maybe not everybody notices all the choices that are available. We have bias, we have fears, we have, um, we do it in this life, when we have the choice to do anything, we limit it down and we go, oh, but I never had a choice, um, how many times has that happened, right? And so we want to look at what was that experience just before choosing these particular parents. And so sometimes there's choices of different parents. The person might be considering, what is my purpose? What is my mission? What is my relationship with these people? Why do I want to be in that location in this time period? All the factors that might be going into that decision. Not everybody is that aware, and making the best choices for themselves. Sometimes people will make the choice to just pick anybody because they're addicted to, let's say they're addicted to alcohol, and there's a body where I can get my hands on alcohol pretty early on. My parents are going to be alcoholics, or not be too strict, and so they might just be looking for the most advantageous according to their weaknesses as well. So we want to take a look at, what was going on in that period of time, and then allowing them to move forward into the womb experience. And what was that like? What were they aware of? What were the emotions of the mother? What were the attitudes of the people around them, the father? Were their siblings? What are they experiencing? And then the birth canal, and or a cesarean, but the birth experience, and what do they remember about that? One of the first ones, decades ago, one of the first experiences I had with going through that with a client, she was in the womb and she was explaining all of that. And then she said, I can tell that it's time for me to be born. I'm supposed to leave this, but I don't want to go. It's so warm and wonderful here, and I just want to stay. And she said, I turned myself, and it's like I'm trying to grab onto anything to keep myself from going. And she turned herself breech on purpose, and, was butt first, legs first. And then she remembered being born breech, and she never knew that. So then after the session, she called her mother and she said, Mom, was I born breech? And her mother said, yes. And that was the first she had learned about it as well. So that was a great confirmation. But anyway, so all of those would be considered regressing, because regression is simply remembering things in the past.
Yeah, no matter how far back you go. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly what I've been doing, that deep dive in with helping with some of these prevention and early intervention techniques, because we do take so many people back to the past, to some of those traumatic or stressful
Yes.
experiences that have caused anxieties or other issues as they get older. And so it's really interesting because exactly what you were just describing, that's what I've been learning how to help with, how to communicate with the baby and
Hmm.
let them know that it's okay and it's a safe environment, and you can, turn the right way and be born, and
Right.
that, preparing them, really mentally preparing them for what's happening on the outside. Because yeah, some of us were holding on tight and did not want to come out because we weren't sure what was going on out there, or it was just so cozy where we were. So can definitely relate. And it's really interesting, like you said, because then going back and comparing, because there are patterns and cycles that play out generationally for those types of
Mhm.
things too. And so, that work is just fascinating and so important to be able to have the skills and the tools to be able to help people to regress to whatever those roots and those beginnings are. And like you said, it can go really far back. So you may end up somewhere you did not expect to
Right.
go. That's the beauty of it. And I want to talk about, you mentioned the scripts that you give, very different than the scripts that people would be used to.
That's a script.
And the thing that I use as an analogy for that is, if you think about a guided meditation, we'll say, think of this meadow and this bridge and this stream. And, it was very detailed, very specific. This is what I want you to imagine.
Right.
And the way that you teach and the scripts that you give, like you said, are guidance, but it's not leading. So you're
Right.
not leading
That's
people and saying, this is what to think, this is what to imagine, this is what to experience. We're just telling them to think of their own safe and peaceful space, for example. And what do you notice? If
mhm,
I'm even working in a group setting, like in my group program, for example, I still follow that. So,
mhm,
yes, I may say, okay, go to a safe and peaceful space. One person might be on a beach, one person's in the woods, one person's in their grandparents' covered porch from when they were a kid. Everyone's going to be imagining something different of what their subconscious is bringing them. When with the empowerment symbol, we're not telling them, imagine this object. We're
right.
saying, what does your subconscious give to you as a gift of empowerment? And so it's different. It's giving that guidance, especially at first when people are building that confidence. Like you said, there's so many different techniques. So it's just more of an outline of a technique. And
Right.
then it's really your clients that are coming up with their own answers. We're not telling them what to think or how to feel or what to imagine. They are leading it. We're just there to guide them along the way. And that's the thing that I love so much about your approach, is because that can be applied to every different type of technique and situation. And like you had mentioned with your reverse metaphor, I know we've talked about that in the past too, that, instead of us telling them the story, they're telling the story. Because it really is their subconscious mind and their answers from within that are needed in order to have that healing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what I'm giving them to my students is the structure of the technique, not the words, not filling in any of the details, but how to present it to the client so that the client fills in all the details. So,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, I love
exactly.
that. So good. Now, you have so many different kinds of people. Obviously, I have that mental health and hypnotherapy background, but there's a lot of people in your classes that have very different backgrounds. I know I've seen people like massage therapists or any other
Yeah.
kinds of healers. I was actually having a conversation earlier with someone who's an intuitive eating specialist and a
Oh,
nutritionist. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, there's so many times that we're working with people who are dealing with weight loss, or
mhm.
they have this emotional eating habit. And how amazing would it be for somebody like that? So anybody in health and wellness, or anybody who's a coach, there's a lot of coaches that I will team up with because they don't have the skills to go deeper with
Oh,
clients. And they always have clients who have deeper challenges. Because again, we're whole people. We're not just, for example, with a business coach, we're not just a business in a bubble, and that's what
right.
I found in my previous part of my career, where I would separate the therapeutic side and the business side, is that there are subconscious blocks going on in all different arenas when people are coaches or different kinds of healers, and their clients will come out of left field with something like we talked about that they are not prepared for, they don't feel equipped or qualified for. And so I know that there's a lot of coaches, for example, that take your courses as well, because it
Mm.
helps them feel confident and feel equipped to deal with those things when they come up. So what are some other ideas of some people that would be a good fit for the classes that you provide?
Well, teachers, because if you're working with kids, there are techniques, even without using hypnotherapy. You don't have to put them in a formal trance, but there are techniques that you could use. If you're a parent, imagine being able to put your kids to sleep at night with some of these techniques, or even working with discipline and different aspects of parenting. But I had a lot of naturopaths come through my training, medical doctors, psychologists, any kind of counselors, family therapists, marriage and family therapists, um, policemen, lawyers, creatives, so like artists, people who writers. I'm just trying to think of who all comes. People in transition, job, career transition. I've had several people who came out of IT and they said, I just can't work in IT anymore for the corporation. I want to branch out and have my own business and do something different. And so they've come through and opened up hypnotherapy practices. A massage therapist, like you said, a lot of them feel that after many years of doing massage, their own body was wearing out. And also during COVID, they were all shut down. If you were seeing in-person people, you were just out of luck. You couldn't work. And so they would come and train with hypnotherapy, because even if it's just something you keep in the back pocket or you use once in a while with your clients, if there's ever again another time when you can't have in-person clients, we can work completely. I do all of my sessions over Zoom. And so it's all remote. I can work with people all over the world. I can travel. I can do anything I want and still see my clients, which you can't do in a lot of practices and a lot of business. So I've had people that are younger, that are coming out of high school. They've had a few jobs and they've decided that they wanted to go into hypnotherapy. So it could be kind of a first career move. You don't have to have any specific background, which I think a lot of people find interesting, because they'll contact me and they'll say, do I have to have a psychology degree or this or that? And no, I teach you everything that you need to know. Now, I would still suggest go get some more education, get life experience, learn about a lot of other things. Um, this could be your primary career, but the wiser you are and the more educated you are, the better you're going to be able to help people. So a lot of people come to me, they're maybe psychic readers or Reiki practitioners, a lot of the holistic healing arts, and they realize that the hypnotherapy is almost like the glue that holds it all together. Because when they get to a place where they can't go any further with a client, maybe in energy work, or I've even had a dentist come through my training. Maybe there's some type of block there, or some other deeper, maybe past life trauma or something else that has to be resolved before that, before the issue that is presented will get resolved. So yes, um, having this education, this background, will help you in almost any career choice you have.
Absolutely. So true. I actually was speaking yesterday for the Hypnosis Education Association, and I was speaking about working with kids. And so I love
Mhm.
that you talked about teachers and parents. And I had someone from that talk reach out to me and express. I mean, this is someone who's a professional, who is a hypnotherapist, and really expressed how it has changed her parenting and her
Oh,
connection with her kids,
yeah.
and the connection that they have with themselves, and helping them to be strong in their voice and their self-image, and all of these things. So like you said, we can, yes, utilize these things in our professions, but it doesn't just stay there. It really changes and shifts the way we think about the world. When we have this awareness, like you said, the more learning that we have and the more awareness that we can have, we can make those changes, and
Mm.
we can make positive changes in our lives and in other people's lives. And so, yeah, you mentioned dentists. So back in my original training days, that was really popular.
Mm-hmm.
because I've heard really stories from people whose dentists used hypnotherapy to help them to be
Right.
calm and comfortable when they were getting dentistry work done, and not have to use, as many drugs and shots and all of that. So that's a really great thing. But yeah, any kind of helping profession, or someone who wants to find a new helping profession, if they, like you said, want to help people. I have actually met so many people who, like you said, are in IT or tech, especially in the Seattle area where we live,
Yeah.
and are really not left brain people. So they really are more creatives who've been trying to fit themselves into this kind of analytical box for so long. Or they even still have that career, but they want that creative outlet. They want something different. They want to be able to help people in a different way. And they crave working with people versus, just really working on the computer all of the time. And we get the best of both worlds. Like you said, you work all virtually now, and so do I. And that's, one of the reasons why, and I'm so grateful that I did, that I originally reached out, because I said, well, I want some more in-depth continuing education. And I knew that you offered that. But then also to be able to have that option. Some people love working in person, and I know a lot of hypnotherapists that still do that and love that. And then there's you and me, there's me who decided to move out of the city into the absolute middle of nowhere where there's not really any people. So working virtually has been such a gift for me, but also, like you said, travel. It's something that you can take with you, which
Yes.
phenomenal, because that wasn't always the case. Like you said, with different kinds of licensure, even in, the mental health field, there's a lot of restrictions often.
Mm.
And therapy, we have a little more freedom, which I love. And so, yeah, whether you have that kind of psychology background or not, you do not have to have that. But I think just the prerequisites would be just wanting to help people. If you want to work with people and help them, this is such a great addition to whatever skills and training or wisdom and experience that you already have. And even if you don't know anything about it and it's just really intriguing, I've absolutely had people, and I know you have too, that have come up to me and said, I don't know anything about that, but I want to learn. And
But
so if somebody has that love for wanting to help people and a willingness to learn, I think those are really the only prerequisites.
yeah. Um, I don't know if what you think about this, but I could guide everybody through a short meditation using hypnosis so they could experience it.
Sure, let's
We
do
have
it.
that.
Right.
Okay, so I'll use less than 10 minutes. We'll go through
Okay.
what I call the hypnotic envelope, but I want to make sure that if you're driving, don't do this, right? If you're operating heavy equipment, don't do this. But let's give everybody the opportunity to experience what it feels like to go into trance.
That's fantastic. All right, I'm going to make you primary up on the screen, and I'll let you take it away.
All right. So finding a comfortable place to be seated, very similar to what you would do in a meditation, or you can recline and just take a nice deep breath and let go of any tension in your body, let go of all your thoughts, um, the to-do list, any stress, just putting it on hold for 10 minutes and just understanding that the whole world will spin without you for the next 10 minutes. So just turning your thoughts inward as you relax, and imagine a ball of light at your feet, glistening and shining and radiating. And as that ball of light begins to move up along your body, it gathers up the perceptions and the sensations, leaving behind a completely relaxed body. As it moves up across your legs and your lap, across your body, balancing your energies, moving up across your throat, opening up that channel of expression and creativity, and moving right on up into the third eye, into the center of your forehead, that ball of light expanding your third eye, creating a channel of energy between your conscious mind and your subconscious, that energy flowing through, And as that energy, that channel continues to expand, I invite you to imagine your favorite safe space, that place of relaxation, protection, and connection. And it may be a place you've been to in this lifetime, or a place that you go to in your imagination that allows you to feel free to be yourself. And as you find yourself there, exploring with the curiosity of a child, noticing what is there for you today. And as you explore your safe space, you realize there is an object that has been placed there for you, a gift from the cosmos that will bring you certain energy and characteristics that will be so valuable in your life in this session and also moving forward in your life. And so as you locate this object, this item, take it into your hands and notice the texture, the weight of it, the shape and the color. And notice how it affects you. Notice the energy that this object brings to you. And holding this energy, imagine how you might use this out in your life in a normal everyday experience. When would you bring this object and this energy into play? And now holding that object and beginning a meditation there in your safe space. And as you meditate deeper and deeper, going as deep as you would enjoy today, as I count from 3 to 1, allowing yourself to be teleported to a sacred healing space, a place of dense energy that is there just for your healing and growth. 3, 2, 1. And as you find yourself in this sacred healing space, I want you to lay your hands on something there. And just notice what it feels like to ground yourself into this specific location. And once you feel grounded, go ahead and be seated for an even deeper meditation. And as you begin to meditate this time, you imagine a version of you standing in front of you. And that version of you is real somewhere in time and space, whether a little further down the timeline or in a nearby parallel universe. But that version of you has acquired the traits and characteristics, the skills and talents that you are striving to achieve at this time in your life. Maybe it's more confidence. Maybe it's being more psychically aware. Whatever that is for you, more skillful in your chosen field. And that person in front of you has embodied that already. They've learned their lessons, they've let go of whatever they need to do, and they've achieved that goal. And so now, as I count from 3 to 1, I want you to imagine just slipping out of your body and into their body so that your feet are in their feet, your arms are in their arms, and you're looking out at the world and through their eyes and their perspective. 3, 2, 1. And as you find yourself in this new improved you, this future you, what does that feel like to embody that energy, those characteristics? What does it feel like to move around in that body? What is the energy field like? maybe the mental perspectives. And does it feel lighter or heavier than your former self? Does it feel more confined or more expansive? And so as I count from 3 to 1, stepping back into your former self, 3, 2, 1, and noticing what it feels like to be in your former version again. Noticing the difference between the two. And noticing what maybe needs to happen now in order to become that new, improved self. And yet, as I count from 3 to 1, allowing yourself to move back into that new, improved self. 3, 2, 1. And as you find yourself here this time, how does it feel stepping in to this new, expanded version of you? And looking back at your former self, what would you advise your former self to do differently? How can they quickly become you, quickly move into this version being the most natural? And as a bonus, I'm going to leave you here today in this new improved self so that you can practice every day being this new improved version. Practice until it becomes very natural. So every morning when you wake up, simply taking a moment and making sure you're in this new improved self. Allow them to get you out of bed and start your morning routine. Allow them to guide you through your day, making all the choices. And at night, making sure you're in this new improved self so that they're guiding you through your dream time. And if you were to remain in this new improved self with all these improved characteristics, imagine how the next 24 hours will be different. Maybe you'll have more energy. Maybe you'll take more initiative. Maybe you'll be kinder to yourself and others. Who knows, right? What is that for you? And if you remain in this new, improved version of you each and every moment of the future, how do you imagine the next week will be different than it would have been? And if you remain in this new, improved version of you each and every moment of the future, how do you imagine this next month will be different? What will you have achieved by this time next month? And so remembering all that you've experienced in this session and allowing the subconscious mind to continue to bring you insight, wisdom, and understanding in the days and weeks to come, as I count from 1 to 5, returning here to the present moment, refreshed, alert, and aware. 1, 2, 3, coming up. 4, aware of this time and space. And 5, fully alert and aware and returned here to the present moment.
Thank you so much, Mary Lee. I know everyone got so much out of that. And yes, if you were not able to do that, isn't it fun?
Yeah.
I think it exemplified too just how open-ended. Like you said, it's our own symbol, it's our own safe, all of those things. And you said in multiple techniques in there as well to give people that example. And so if you weren't able to do that live, if you weren't somewhere where you could relax and close your eyes for a moment, go back and watch the replay because you will get so much out of it. Absolutely.
And I had to do it pretty quickly to squeeze it into the time. So normally it would be a little bit longer. And in a normal session, I would use the techniques like that. But the client would be giving me feedback. They would be describing the safe space, the empowerment symbol. And then based on that information guides me to where they need to go next. So that's the type of feedback loop that we're getting. Here, of course, we couldn't do that because everybody will be on their own journey. But yeah, so I also want to offer your group a special discount code to get 20% off of my training. So if you are interested in exploring this deeper, finding, figuring out if this is a really good fit for your career move and your lifestyle move, there's a code. Well, Jody, I think you're going to put up the link to get to the training. There it is. And then the code Jody20, all caps, Jody20 for 20% off. And that ends on the 30th. What happens is this is an online course. So as soon as you sign up, you can start studying. Starting October 8th, well, 3 times a year, I add in live support calls for 10 weeks. So we have 10 2-hour classes that are included, plus alumni get to come back and repeat that whenever they want. So you can have continuing education and always updating your skills. However, the next the next series of calls starts October 8th. And so this discount cuts off on September 30th, which is only 8 days before the class. So I really want to encourage you, if you're interested, get signed up right away, because before the 8th, you'll receive an email with certain modules you'll have to study in advance of the class. So you'll want to get started right away. But anyway, that's that. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think it's so valuable. Getting that online course in and of itself is well worth it. And then those live support calls are fantastic because you just saw a very small snippet of a demonstration from Mary Lee, but in each of those calls, she will actually show us the techniques that she's teaching in that module that week. And so you get to experience that. Like she said, it's interactive and live when she's one-on-one. And so you can come and get some work done yourself and be an example for the class. And we all will help each other practice as well.
Mhm.
So, the people who are brand new get to ask all of their questions and have practice partners that they can find with each other. So, the fact that you have that community aspect is really helpful, because then you do get the practice. You can build that confidence as well as get all of those live questions answered at the same time as you're going through the online course. So it's wonderful that you have that. It's a great idea, like you said, to get started as soon as possible. So then you have some of that to study, and then you can come to the classes and ask your questions, but then you can always come back. And that's the thing that's so wonderful. You have the replays for us. So anyone who registers for the class can also get the replays if they can't make it for some reason to a class. But it's definitely worth it to be there. And I am going to be there. So anyone who decides to join, it is on my calendar. There have been times where it's been a little hit or miss, but I try to come as much as I can. And this round, I put it in the calendar for all 10 weeks. So I will absolutely be there. And, it's wonderful because, like I said, even somebody who was a graduate of your programs and has been doing this full time for multiple years, what's great is I always learn something, because someone will ask a different question, or sometimes, your book just came out before the last class and there were some new techniques, and you're always updating the course online and adding things into the program. And so I can't wait to see what you have in store for us this time around. And I'm just so grateful to have you as one of my mentors and my teachers and in my life. And so I just want to say thank you for coming on and having this conversation today. And if anyone's on the fence and they're thinking about being a part of one of your courses, I highly recommend it and would wholeheartedly say, yes, do it. And if you have questions, you can reach out to either one of us.
Yeah. And on the sales page on that link, there is a way to schedule a call with me if you want to just talk about how this might blend with your current career or any questions that you might have.
That's
But
really
thank you
helpful.
for having me here today, Jody. This has been so fun. And I look forward to seeing you in October in class.
Absolutely. So do I. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Again, reach out to us or click the link. I did put the link underneath the video in all the places. Reach out to us if you need anything, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And we will see you soon.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye, everyone.